John from Joe Ventures Outdoors, and today we're working on a new leather project, and this is for the Knife Doctor. This is a case, little thin, and I showed this in a recent video, and Kevin, the Knife Doctor, he asked me, hey, can you video your project? It'd be cool to share on both channels. So I agreed. I've been planning to do this anyway, and this seemed like a really good project to do this on. Now, I'm also making another sheath for his Western lockback knife, and I wanted to start on this one first because I just thought this was really cool, and so that's what we're doing first. So I thought I'd explain a little bit about what I've done so far, and then I'll take you along on some of the steps on this project. So the first thing it starts with is really making a template. Now, I had some templates that I thought I could use, maybe the marbles. If you know the marble sheaths I've made for some folks, those actually were pretty close in size, but not quite. Not quite the right size that I wanted. I wanted a basic fold over sheath, and it's very similar, but it just really wasn't going to work very well. So I made my own template here, and this is usually what I do. Now, paper it's really kind of thin when you're using just regular paper. But what I do is I take, and I think you can see that there, I take two pieces of paper together and I fold them over when I'm doing a fold over sheath. And so they're really folded over, and like that, fold them lengthwise. And then I take the knife and I put it up against this folded edge, and I want to give a little bit of space from the fold to give it room to fold over the knife blade. And then I measure down usually about a ½ an inch for the rest of the bottom portion of that sheath. And that gives me room for stitching at a ½ an inch. I usually stitch at a ½ an inch and then have a ½ inch welt. So I'll cut another piece of leather to go here for a welt, and that'll come later. But for now, what I've done is I've gone to the bigger piece of, this is a 7 to 9 inch veg tan leather from Tandy. And we have a Tandy store in the city near us here in Indiana, down in Indianapolis really. And so I buy my leather from there. So I cut out the bigger piece, and you can see where I've taken the template and have traced around it on that bigger piece of leather. And then I usually just cut that out so that I can work on it on my workstation here. I'll just turn you around here. I've got an area here where I can cut on a cutting board and that sort of thing, so that just makes it easier. What you're looking at is the punching mat with the quartz slab underneath it. So that's what I'm about to do, is cut this out. I'm not going to necessarily videotape that, but I typically use scissors, and I've got these pair of scissors, which they're nothing special, but for some reason they work really well, and I have to sharpen them occasionally. But I'll use that for most of this until I get to this section, and then I'll use a rolling razor knife. This works really well, and I use a straight edge to get that really nice and straight on the belt loops. And I'll end up using a couple of other knives as well. One of my favorite utility knives to use is the Milwaukee 1500, and so I'll use it to kind of cut around the corners and that sort of thing. So several knives will be used to do that, and I'll bring you back when I'm ready for the next step. Okay, I'm back here once again, checking my microphone here, just make sure it's on. So I'm back here once again. I've got it cut out. This is the rough piece of leather, which will eventually be the sheath. And this will actually fold over. I'll have to cut that and trim it. and I will sew that probably right there at the base of that. And I will need to cut that down some once I figure out the size and sew it around. But the next couple steps are, well, the next step is to, just sand any edges here real quick, just to make sure we've got a nice even edges here. And we'll do more sanding later. A lot of the sanding will come actually after we glue it together. But I like to kind of come along here and kind of do a little bit of this just to kind of even things out a little bit. Because right here, like along the edge here, you can't get that, real smooth. So I just come along here and do a little bit. Most of this looks pretty decent. A lot better cut up here where I use the razor knife. So sometimes when I use the scissors, I have to do a little bit of smoothing along the edges there. But a lot of that will smooth out once we actually dye it and do the burnishing. I couldn't think what I was saying. Yeah. Okay, so we're back. I did a little shaving on this part right here to get it just a little closer, and it's too hard to do that on camera. So the next thing I want to do is do what we call edge beveling. And this is the tool we use as an edge beveler. In fact, this was a gift from SD Leatherworks, Sarah. And I appreciate that, Sarah. I have another one that I use sometimes, and it's this one right here. It's smaller, and it came with a kit that I bought, my starter kit. But I like to use this one, and it's a little easier. So basically what I'm going to do, this takes just the edge of that off all the way around, and I'm going to do that on both sides. And what that does is it helps me burnish those edges and make them nice and round and smooth. So I'm just going to take this right here. Let's see if we can do it so it's on camera. But I'm just going to take this right along here. You can see what it's doing. Hard to do with the camera. I'm going to get over here on this side. I'll come right along the edge, like that. I'll turn this around. I'll come back down this way. And go around the corner and out there. Then we'll come down this way. Sometimes a little hard to get it started. I don't worry about it too much if it's not absolutely perfect. So now I'm all the way around. I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to do this side, do the flesh side. This is the flesh, this is the grain. So if you hear me refer to that. And so I'm going to come along here. I'm just going to trim these edges. Just like this. Around here. This new edge beveler makes it so much easier to do this. Thank you, Sarah. She found a bunch of tools at a estate sale or something and had an extra one. And I mentioned that I was looking for one. She said, well, I'll just send it to you. That's just very generous. Okay, and she's a great leather worker. Excellent leather worker. And then I'm going to come around here on this side, because I haven't done this yet. Down like that. And I've got them all. So you can see kind of what it does it just knocks the edges off. Edge beveler, it bevels it. And then when you come back with your burnishing tool, this tool right here, when we get later in the process after we've dyed it and we've used the compound for burnishing, then that will be a lot smoother. Now you can see we've got a little bit of an edge there that we need to work on, and that's where some sanding later on will knock that down so it's all even. All that has to be even. And so in fact you can tell, yeah, I need to work on that edge just a little bit. So I'll work on that some more. So the next step after this is actually stamping. We'll stamp, and he wants something special on this, which I think it will work fine. We're going to have an American flag and USMC because he is a Marine veteran. And and we really appreciate all of our veterans' service to our country and providing that freedom for us that we enjoy every day. So I'm going to do a nice flag. He wanted the U.S. Marines emblem with the globe and the eels, and I searched for it. I really did, but it was very expensive to find one. So we settled for the flag here. And I don't think we're just settling for the flag. I think that's a really cool choice. And so be using that on here. The next step after that, and then I'll be doing JO on the back. Since I've got the flag on the front, I'm probably just going to do JO right down here, just as a maker's mark. And then after that, we'll have to cut a welt and glue that welt onto here. And then once we've done that, then we can dye it. And we're still settling on dye colors. And I think it's going to be this one. This is light tan, new one for me. This is British tan. I think it'll be British tan. I think that's closest to what he wants. So I'll bring you back when we get ready to do some of these other steps. I need to get settled here. Okay, I'm back. I did a little bit of work on the edges here, and I've got these a little straighter. We still need to do a little bit of work on that one, but that'll come later. So now I'm ready to stamp. And this is very tricky. I don't know if you can see this or not, but I made some pencil marks. I needed to find the middle, and that marks the middle of this area, and then the middle of this section. This is the front. So this is going to have a American flag here with USMC underneath it, and I believe that's all going to fit just fine. I have to think about the stitching line over here with my letters, and okay, once again, we're doing the stamping here. I had to go check on get the letter stamps out here for us. So we're going to use a stamp, leather stamping. This is the flag. And so we want to try to get this in the center, and we want to try to get it straight. So getting a line across there that's straight and knowing the center helps out a whole lot with that. I have my quartz slab here, and this is just water in this bottle, and I'm going to wet the leather right in here. We'll also have to come down here and put the JO down here at the end, at the very bottom, I think, for the maker's mark. So I'm going to start with the flag, and I'm going to use a mallet to hit that with. So I need to try to get this wet, and I think you can see what's going on. Let me put some more water in my bottle here. That wet. And take a towel. This one's not overly clean, but Just kind of blot it. Give it a minute or so here to soak in. I like to kind of dry everything off. Get things out of the way here. Okay. And I can still see my pencil marks. So I'm going to take this around and I need to line this up straight. And on the middle, pull some light down to see what's going on. Sure I got it in the right spot. Ooh, I think she turned out great. Perfect. Get my light back up so we can see. Here we go. All right. Perfectly in the middle. So now I need to go down below that with the USMC. Now that will be much trickier. Letters are not super easy. I think about a 1/2 inch down from the flag seems about right. I still have my center mark, like a real light line. Again, I'm going to I need to keep in mind my stitching line will be right there, so I need to come in from there. So I have my leather stamps. They look like that. There's the U. You always want to make sure they're the right side up. I don't know how many times I've put them the wrong side up. So I got to figure out where these are going to go. Here's the U. Okay, I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back here with this project, and I had some issues. Sometimes that happens. But here's the stamping and how that turned out. As you know, I was working on that on the last one. Well, I had 2 failed attempts, and I ended up just practicing a little bit. It was too much to try to put this horizontal, so I just went vertical on that after sleeping on it. I saved these just for other uses and to practice with, but that turned out pretty decent. We got the JO on the back, and since we have the flag here, I didn't put it back there. Seemed kind of redundant. So yeah, that turned out great. And I sent pictures to Kevin at Knife Doctor, and he liked it. And so, yeah, cool. So now the next step. So the next couple steps here are gluing the welt onto here. So we've got to glue that onto there. I didn't film or record me cutting the welt out, but basically you just get you a scrap piece of leather, you know, and it's got to be a bigger one than this, and you just trace along here and then measure up a 1/2 inch and cut that out. So the welt, if you don't know what a welt is along this stitching seam, and the knife blade fits right in there, and it keeps it from, I don't have it positioned quite perfectly here, but it keeps it from cutting the thread. So that should fit in there just perfectly, and I believe this does. So yeah, so it's going to stop right there. The welt's going to be just right at or just below that one edge, and we'll be able to adjust it maybe a little bit as we go. But so I'm going to glue that right in there. And there's different glues that people use, but I use Gorilla Wood Glue. I've tried another glue, but you know, it didn't really work for me. I didn't like it. There are some specific leather glues. I'm getting kind of low on this one, but now let's see if we can get that out. There we go. Didn't have it open all the way, I don't think. Yeah, hang on a second. Okay, here we go. So, yeah, you just put some right along here. You don't want to get too crazy with it because it'll make a mess. And then I usually just take my finger and I spread it out right along here. You could use, you know, a dauber of some sort or a paintbrush, an old, you know, model paintbrush or something to do that. Get my rag. Definitely want to make sure that you are wiping your fingers off from that glue. If you get that glue all over the leather, it's not going to look good. So it'd be a real issue. So here I'm going to have to go a little bit off, get out of the way of the viewfinder of my phone. I have to get that positioned just right. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, I'd rather it be a little bit sticking out on this end than not. That looks pretty good. That looks pretty good. And then we're just going to take some of these clamps and leather pieces. We're just going to clamp along the edges there, and I'll do that all the way down. So I will bring you back for the next section, which I didn't say that before. We'll be dyeing this. So, and we're going to use British tan dye from Beveling. And so that'll be cool. It'll be roughly that color. So we'll bring you back for the next one. John from JO Ventures Outdoors, and I'm back once again for the next segment of this project. So we've let our glue dry on our welt here for a few hours today. And so we're going to take these off and put all this back in our little bin. Oh, I also cut this out. It will be a strap for the knife to go around the handle of the knife. I'll put a snap in it and round these edges eventually, but I'll do that at the end. I'm also going to need to cut this. So this is one thing that we do need to do. I need my ruler and figure out where I'm going to cut this. I also want to round the edges on it. I usually like to leave about a 2.5 inch loop. And I want to probably sew that right in that area there. So let me mark this out. 2.5 is right there, about right there. Use our pencil and mark out 2.5. particular one. Yeah, we're just going to cut this right there. Pieces go flying. Okay, yeah, there we go. So that's what we want. That looks about right. Let's make sure we got an inch. Oh yeah, we got plenty. We got 4 inches. Yeah. So the next thing I want to do is round those. So I use this lots of times. This little implement. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing here, but it's going to make a little round edges. Kind of crudely. There we go. You can kind of see I got some pencil marks, so hang on just a second. I'm going to cut this off. Yeah, there we go. So now I probably need to sand this. Round that off just a little bit. Take your edge beveler and hit that. Hard to do all this in the camera. Now I'll need to sand this some more. There we go. Okay, round that off. Okay, it's looking good. See, we just want to get a nice smooth edge because that's the scissors don't cut that real smooth. Okay, there we go. So we got a round edge. That's going to flip back around, and we're going to eventually sew that. We're going to stitch that right there together, but we will have to stitch this on first. We'll have to stitch that on first, but all after we dye it, which is the next thing we need to do. So let me get resituated here for dyeing. So when I dye this, I'm going to dye the whole inside and the other side of this, but not the edges down here. I will dye the edges up here, and I will have to dye all of this. Now I will eventually cut this off and round that, and then I can touch up the dye. I'll touch up these edges with dye at the end, okay? And you see I've got a little bit overlapping there. That's quite all right. That is quite all right. So there's our sheath together like that. Let's test it. Got to get our knife. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, she is gonna fit nicely. See, I really like having a little bit here on the edge. I can trim that off later after we glue this. But first we have to dye all this. When you dye, or when you're dyeing, you really have to be careful with the dye. I have spilled dye before. Again, we're going to use this, and I'm going to move this over here. So I'm going to move you over there. So I have to get this in a place where you can see and I can work. I think that'll work. So, so what I'm going to do here, take my dye, unscrew it, and be very, very careful. Put some on here. And then I'm not going to do the top of this welt because that's going to be glued, and it will stick better without dye. And I'm just going to come all in here. I like to do the inside and the outside. I just think it looks better. Again, I'm not going to do the edges there. We'll do that top edge, and then we'll work our way down this area. We'll have to do some burnishing too. That's smoothing the edges, but that will come here in a few minutes. Okay, do that. I want to do the edges real good. Make sure you get all the edges. I have to get some more dye on my dauber. This is a wool dauber, by the way. Lots of time when you buy dye, it comes with that, but you can buy them in packages. And I did buy some recently, but they're really big, and I don't think they'll work very well for this. Be nice to have them for bigger projects, but okay, that's really a nice color, isn't it? Really looking good. We'll get some more on our dauber, being very careful. And we're just going to come down here. Nice smooth strokes. You want a little bit of a brushy appearance, but not too much. Make sure we get it covered evenly. Oh yeah, that's going to look nice. May have to go over some areas again. And again, we'll just make our way down the belt loop. We're doing the belt loop right now. And all the way down. Yeah. I want to go over this again just to give it a nice rich color. Okay. See, we missed some edges here. Do all the edges again. Now we definitely want these done because we're going to come back and do some burnishing, but also we're going to be gluing that over. That'll go over just like that. Get all the edges there. Okay. Yeah. Man, this is beautiful. This is British tan, and I just really love British tan. In fact, I'm going to do the combination of British tan with tan stitching, some light tan stitching. And I think that's going to be a really, really good combination. It will dry just a little bit lighter than what you see here. Now I'm going to close my die up, prevent any spillage. Oh, I've got this to do. All right, a little too premature there. We'll go back to the die. We'll do our strap. Just get that on there. Go over it. There. And then hit the other side. This is 4 to 6 ounce leather on the strap. It's 7 to 9 ounce on the actual sheath. The strap I like to do in a little bit lighter weight because it gives it more flexibility. I like to use a lot of dye. I don't, some people don't, but I do. I like that nice rich color. Okay, there we go. Oh boy, that's going to look great. All right, so you got to wear gloves. You'll get it all over you. All right, let's close our dye up. Make sure we don't spill. So now we just look for places that need to be touched up. And I need our burnishing tool. It's just basically a piece of wood. This is it right here. And I have some burnishing compound that I'll use later. But for now, I'm just going to use the wet dye. I'm going to come along here on the flesh side. And I'm just going to kind of smooth it out. I don't want this real fleshy. That's going to be on the outside. So we're basically burnishing this side just a little bit. Just do that. We'll do the same over here on the strap. Just a little bit. Yeah. And then we'll hit it. If we need to hit it again with some dye, we can. Do that. That's fine. That looks good. Make sure we get the edges real good. Okay. That looks great there. Now we're going to also, we're just going to look over here, make sure we like this. I think that looks really good, but I'm going to go over it a little more here. Give it another light coat. Down here. It's okay if it's a little blotchy. I think it kind of gives it character. I kind of like it like that. Yeah. Okay. All right, then we're going to do this. We're going to take our burnishing tool and we're just going to kind of do some pre-burnishing along this strap. Really, it's the belt loop. And it's really better to wait till it dries a little more, but we'll go ahead and hit it now. Get right in there. Okay, like when the dye is wet. Oh, I'm not in the camera here. Sorry about that. Let's see what I'm doing here. See what it does. Makes it real nice and shiny there. And we'll do some more here later. Get that edge. Okay. Get this edge right here. All right, and then we'll do this the same. That doesn't really matter, but and we're doing those edges too. Okay. So, been going on a long time on this segment. All right, so that's pretty much dyeing it. I will take a rag, just a rag here, and do some preliminary buffing. That spot right in there, I want to just kind of hit again. Okay. Do some buffing. All right. All right, there it is. And then I'll just fold this just a little bit while the dye is wet. Start to get it to mold to that fold there. Do this edge. There we go. All right. That's it for this segment. We'll bring you back later.